got a bunch of cameras and things set up, so. What's up? If you can see the setup that I have going on right now, it's something to say the least. You got iPads, iPhones, MacBook Pros, microphones, a lot of fun stuff. All right, we're gonna get recording here. Looks good. All right, well, to those watching live, happy Friday, everyone. I'm Michael, the office manager here at Inspire Life Chiropractic Center. Many of you know me, obviously, and for those who don't, hello, nice to meet you. I am coming to you live today as part of Friday Fun Days Live with Michael, and I'm going to share my story. So if you're listening to this on podcast, Facebook Live, videocast, whatever it is, first off, thank you for listening, and if you're tuning in live, I have my phone flipped around so I can't see who's watching, but if you're there, I thank you for listening. So, without further ado, Dr. Mel and I have talked about, the power of story, right? We all know that when it comes to sharing stories, a lot of times there's a lot of lessons that other people can take from stories that other people share. So, a lot of you probably already know my story, and I'm going to go in depth with it. And if you have any feedback, comments, if this inspires you in any way, or if you have anything that you want to share, please, as always, let me know. So, where to start? So, my whole life, I've always been someone who enjoys activities and doing things, right? To go way back, I think when I was probably 3 or 4 years old, I started playing baseball in the backyard with my parents, with my sister. I've always been, growing up, I was a 4-sport athlete. I played football, hockey, golf, and baseball. My whole life. I still play golf and I skate and play hockey in the winter. So those are some of the things that, really bring me joy in life. So anyway, growing up, that was kind of my passion. It still really is. I love being active. I've never been a lazy person per se. But anyway, growing up, when I was very young, and if you've heard Dr. Mel's story or if you know my story, at a young age, between 2nd and 3rd grade actually, my parents got divorced, which, we know in the United States, 53%, it's kind of the norm, unfortunately. But with that, there's a lot of trauma that goes on, especially for young kids. So it was also a time when, between 2nd and 3rd grade, I was actually sent to a different middle school. So, in the span of one summer, when I was like 8 years old, I went from having a relatively stable home life, family dinner every night, that kind of thing, and a ton of friends at school, great support systems everywhere in my life. To having that all essentially kind of stripped away from me. And we know that too when it comes to divorce or trauma, everyone processes in some way, right? And there's very different ways. A lot of people will get angry, other people depressed. My way of actually dealing with all of this trauma and kind of what was going on was I actually turned to internalizing my feelings and my emotions through binge eating. So I developed binge eating disorder, it was probably right around that time in 3rd grade. I can vividly remember the day that my parents kind of let my sister and I know that they were going to be getting divorced, that dad wouldn't be there anymore. I actually went home and I literally took a full pack of American Singles cheese, and I just took it and ate it underneath the coffee table. It's a really random thing, but that was anchoring in the neurology that in a time when a lot of stuff was going around, it was not stable by any means. I didn't feel my body. That was what grounded me. And these behaviors continued essentially my whole life for a long time. And I began to put on weight pretty rapidly. So, by the time I was in 8th grade, mind you, this whole time I'm playing sports and I'm active, but when I was in 8th grade, I was quite heavy. I remember going for my doctor, my physical, and I stepped on the scale and I was 193 pounds. And this is the start of 8th grade. okay? And that's very heavy for an 8th grader. With that too, we did my blood pressure, and I think it was like 145/90, so very elevated for a 12, 13-year-old. My body was obviously in a stress mode, fight or flight, and it was doing everything it could just to survive at that point. So it was actually at that appointment where, the doctor recommended, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but because I had elevated blood pressure, I was prescribed to a medication called lisinopril, which is to regulate blood pressure. 5 milligram dose every day. That's a pretty standard dose if you're familiar with that drug. So going forward into high school, I continued to play sports, obviously. Football especially was kind of just my thing. And then I got into the time I was in 11th grade, I can remember, going to football practice, and we were running, doing conditioning drills, and I just feel clicking in my knee, in my left knee. And I also had a job at Cub Foods, and I pushed carts into the building, and I also would feel this clicking in my knee. So I knew something wasn't right down there. We went into, after the football season, one day I was at work, and I literally, I sat down in my car after work, and I felt a tear, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is really bad. And my mom is pretty old school when it comes to healthcare. She's kind of like rub some dirt on it, throw a heating pad on it, and you'll be okay. And actually, to preface the whole knee pain, I had massive lower back pain, in all through middle school and early high school. And every night, that was what it was. Throw a heating pad on it, it'll be all right. This is obviously too growing up. We were never, my family, we never did chiropractic care. It was kind of this, I had no idea what it was. I just thought it was back cracking and just random whatever. And I knew I had back pain, but it was never a thought that crossed our minds to go see a chiropractor. We'll get back to that later. Anyway, so we go and get an MRI on my knee after the football season, and I was diagnosed with a condition called osteochondritis dissecans. So it's a long, two big words. To put that into very simple kind of terms, it means that the connection or the bone marrow in my femur, in my left femur, it wasn't fully going down all the way through my femur, my leg. So the bottom of my femur actually was not fully developed. It's the condyle, the lateral condyle. Your femur is supposed to be kind of smooth. Mine was jagged. So it was literally little razor blades was the bottom of my femur. And through years of playing contact sports, football in particular, and hockey and baseball, golf isn't a contact sport. I've been hitting golf, but that's a different story for a different time. My knee was shredded. We're talking the cartilage, meniscus, partial tears of my ACL and my LCL. It was not in good shape. So, we asked, what are our options? And we were sent to an orthopedic surgeon. And at the age of 16, I was 16 because this was February of my junior year of high school, I had a massive bone graft transplant surgery, okay? So literally what they did, let's pretend this is my femur again. This is the condyle. They took a drill and drilled up into my femur because the thought was that the bone marrow would then leak down and help. They drilled up, they put a bone graft in. The thought was that the bone marrow would come down and heal into that. So it was a relatively newer procedure at the time. And we did it, and at the same time, the doctor at the Postop, appointment, was like, okay, this is going to be, you're going to have to have crutches for 6 weeks. You're going to have to use this physical therapy device, all these things, and you're no longer going to play contact sports. Hockey, baseball, football, those are going to be very risky, and you're not going to be playing any of those sports anymore. So me being a kid who's played sports my whole life, one of the only things that really truly brought me joy besides food, having that stripped from me sent me into a very deep depression. I'm talking more than just tears, isolation. I didn't really care. And throughout this whole process too, Oh, someone's honking. I think it is important to note as well that I was so torn up and disconnected on the inside that I kind of used external relationships and being friends with everyone and just being the nicest person I could possibly be as a way to justify not feeling whole and not feeling complete and really feeling vulnerable on the inside. So after junior year of high school and after having the surgery, the way that I coped with it, with not being able to play sports and do the things that I love anymore, was with partying and binge drinking. So fast forward, to the end of high school. By the time I graduated, I was over 300 pounds, and I decided to go to college. Which, another story about that. There was teachers who didn't believe I could do college. Anyway, I was planning to go to Bemidji State, but I actually decided to go to St. Cloud State last minute. The reason I changed, because St. Cloud State had more of a party reputation than Bemidji State did. These are my priorities, right? I did not, to be frank, give a shit about what it was I was doing, how it impacted my health, how it impacted the people around me. I just wanted to party and forget about the pain and forget about all the things that were troubling me. So I went to St. Cloud State, for those who don't know the reputation, and I partied and I had fun. School was always something that came relatively easy to me. I didn't give that much effort to it. I didn't give much thought to what I really wanted to do. I was studying psychology because I took a psychology class in high school and I thought it was interesting. But I was in a cycle where I would go to class maybe half the time. In sophomore year of college, actually, I've always valued work and working hard. So I had 2 jobs. I'm 19 years old. I'm working like 50 hours a week between Wendy's and Bath and Body Works, and I'm continuing to put on weight. So then it's the winter of 2012, January 2012, and I was playing hockey outside with my friends, pond hockey, just skating around, having a good time, probably having a couple beers, and I was skating and I actually fell and I hit my knee on the ice, and that bone graft that they put in when I was 17 years old cracked out. So I've experienced some pain in my life. That's number one. I can't even explain it to you. It makes my stomach right here hurt. Anyway, the bone graft cracked out. I couldn't walk. So the next day we go into the emergency room. I had a surgery the next day. So 2 days later, they pulled that bone graft out along with all the re-shredded cartilage. I was put on a wait list for a new donor. And in March, the day after my birthday in March 2012, I had a second round of the same surgery, massive bone graft transplant surgery. Okay. This time I took it a little more serious in recovery. I did my machine the whole time. I was on crutches all 6 weeks instead of 2 like the time before. And then in May of 2012, I came off crutches. I remember it was May 16th. And I went in and I stepped on the scale and the number was 375 pounds. Okay. That was a moment for me when I was like, holy shit, like I need to change my life. I need to change what I'm doing now or I'm going to die at a young age. That was literally my thought. I was like, holy shit. And at that point I was on a 10 milligram dose of lisinopril, even higher dose. And even with that dose of that medication, my blood pressure is still, the top number was still over 140. The bottom number was still over 90. And I decided, okay, I need to make a change or I'm probably gonna die. So I decided I'm gonna start like riding my bike everywhere and I'm going to start eating vegetables and stuff. And that was over the summer of 2012 and I started doing that. I worked, like I said, at Bath and Body Works and Wendy's. So I would ride my bike to work, ride my bike home. I stopped eating the food at the fast food joint. I would make just like chicken, eggs, and vegetables. I was like, I don't know what else. Like I'm looking it up, and all these people online who are like trainers and stuff say these are great foods. So I just started. That was the start of kind of my nutrition research for myself. I started noticing a little bit of changes, but the thing that was kind of a huge catalyst in my journey was one day I was at Lake George in St. Cloud, if anyone's familiar, and I went to this little business fair that was going on next to Lake George. and there was a bunch of little vendors, and I was walking around, and all of a sudden I come up to this one booth, and it was, I think it was Advantage Life Chiropractic Center, or Advantage Life Chiropractic. And I was like, I had this thought, because my sister had just gotten into chiropractic school. She was starting her first trimester that fall. And I was like, my sister is, from what I know, she's pretty healthy, and she's going to be a chiropractor. I know I used to have back pain in the past, and I kind of have some right now. I feel like I've tried everything else, and I'm pretty desperate at this point. So what do I have to lose, right? And speaking of desperation, this is a little tangent back, but when I was a freshman in college, I wanted to lose weight so bad. I started looking at food as an enemy, and there was a period of time for 17 days I fasted. I did not eat food for 17 days because I didn't realize that food is medicine. Food was actually something that was going to fuel me and help me to lose weight. I looked at it as the enemy. And I lost a lot of weight when I did that fast, but then I also put it back on, plus a lot more. But that's just a side tangent. Like, I'm telling you, when I was desperate for change, when I went up to this chiropractic booth, I felt like I had literally tried everything. Mind you, too, that was in September. That was like September 20th, I want to say, 2012. So from May to September, with riding my bike and eating better and stuff, I'd only lost like 18 to 20 pounds in that range. So I went into the chiropractor. They gave like a discount on the exam. And I don't have my scans. I should have had them with me. But for anyone who knows, there's tests of the nervous system that a lot of chiropractors do. And I had 1,200% tension in my C1, right? So the rolling or the static EMG, I think it was 1,200% tension. I had 5 different areas in my spine where they use like different colors to kind of say what the tension is in the spine. I had black, which is off the charts, in 5 different spots. Remember we did these scans, and I'll never forget, my chiropractor looked at it, he was just like, he was taken back. He had never seen a case like this before. He's like, how do you not have chronic headaches? I was like, well, I'm taking a really high dose of this high blood pressure medication. He's like, okay, that makes sense. We went over my goals. I said, honestly, I want to lose weight. I want to look forward to living again. I kind of want to I just want to be better. I want to be healthy. I want to be there for me. I want to be there for my family. And he said, I know that your goals are weight loss and understanding like calories and nutrition is really important. And I think getting adjusted is really going to help you out with that. And before my first adjustment, he kind of like before the adjustment, he looked at me and he said, all right, he's like, when we're done with this adjustment, all I want you to do is when you go outside, just look around, okay? And just take in reality. He didn't say it that way, but after that point, I kept doing the same exact things I was doing. I was riding my bike to work. I was eating vegetables. I was only drinking 3 days a week instead of 5. That was St. Cloud. And I shed 50 pounds in like a month and a half. It was insane. And I was, mind you, I was getting adjusted 3 times a week for 6 weeks. And I was paying out of pocket for it as a college student. Okay? After my first adjustment, I was like, there's something here that is really important and really powerful. And I need to keep doing this because my fucking life depends on it. This is PG-13, I guess. Anyway, I also came to a realization that living in St. Cloud and being in that environment was not serving me, and it was a huge detriment. So it was a tough decision because I had made a lot of great friends, but I decided, okay, I had to transfer and get out of here, and I went to Winona State. When I went to Winona State, January 2013, I stopped getting adjusted. I kept doing the same things, but I stopped getting adjusted, right? I was living on my buddy's couch. I got a job at Walmart, and things plateaued. I wasn't making any progress. I was slipping into some old habits and patterns that weren't great with the drinking and the partying. Wasn't taking school as seriously as I could have. And then I started getting adjusted again, and it started catalyzing my results again. So, from then to now, from being at a point of desperation, of completely lost hope, to, I'm telling you, when you reach that point of rock bottom with your health, where you're like, all right, if I don't change now, I'm gonna die, that's eye-opening. and to be at that point and make some changes and not see the results that I was hoping for, I was on my last leg when I found that chiropractor in St. Cloud. So, you know, those of you who have heard my story before too, you just know that from where I was to where I am now, I fully and wholeheartedly know that chiropractic saved my life. And, you know, with the journey that I've been through and with kind of the insight that I have when it comes to, you know, being healthy behaviors and healthy activities, it's what pushed me to realize why I was studying psychology and why I was studying behavior, to become a health coach, become an actual health coach, and focus on helping people with behavior change who want to accomplish a lot of the similar things that I have. And I have this passion. I'm like one of the biggest, you know, I'm channeling my inner Anthony Verderame here if he's listening. I am one of the biggest chiropractic evangelists out there because I have seen it not only change my life, I've seen it change my family's life, my friend's life, and there is magic in a healthy spine. We say it all the time. And when your nervous system, when your communication track per se with the universe around us, with all that is reality, is in line and in tune, you're going to be able to come forth and bring your gifts to the universe. So that's my story. You know, there's parts here and there that maybe I skipped, but you know, being able to completely transition from a state of chronic symptoms, and you know, there's even little things that I didn't even bring up. Like I used to be super allergic to cats. I'm not allergic to cats anymore. I had my doctor who at the Postop appointment told me that I would not be able to run ever again without extreme pain, that running was something I should not do, that I couldn't play sports anymore. I can run. I've run more miles in the last year than I have my whole life. Like, my knee is now structurally sound. I went and got an x-ray at a different doctor and they said, yeah, like, you know, there's some scar tissue obviously from the surgery, but structurally it's sound. That's the power of the human body and the nervous system. That is the power of being able to be at your highest energetic capacity and reserves to allow your body to heal. It takes a lot of work. Something that I live by and influenced my journey is from the ages of 8 to 20, I put 12 years of hard trauma on my body. I was doing things like, I'm telling you, like, when you're drinking 5 days a week, that is really tough on a nervous system, really tough on a human body. And I put my body through hell, okay? And it's gonna take at least 12 years for me to get back to fully 100%. But that's the thing, it's a journey, right? I'm here where I am right now, and I can do the best with what I have, okay? I need to keep focusing on healing in many different respects. And that's what it's all about. That's what Dr. Mel and I, that's why we created this group, that's why we created this podcast, that's why we created videocasts, to share not only stories and perspectives, but also to know that you're not alone in this journey. And, you know, we've been there, and we understand that it takes time and it takes effort, but there is no limits on what the body can do and what the body can heal from. So if you tune in live, tune in on videocast or podcast, again, I want to thank you. I'm getting a little emotional right now because that's part of being a human too, right? It's not the easiest thing to talk about for me because there's a lot of shame involved with what I went through, but I'm continuing to heal and take a more positive perspective on what I went through, where I am, and where I'm going. So again, I thank you all for listening. And in the meantime, everyone, if you're in the Facebook group right now and you're listening, check us out. On Sundays, I'll be doing a cooking show, so excited to share that. Dr. Mel has our Mindfulness Mondays and podcasts every Wednesdays, video sharing on Thursdays. So again, we just want to produce great content for you guys, but also too understanding that we're human too and we've been through it. You know, please reach out to us, let us know how it is that we can serve you, because that's, at the end of the day, that's really what we want to do, is just serve humanity to our greatest compassion. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching and listening, and keep inspiring.